Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, September 7th, 2016, and I don't know, there might be some news or something. I'm not really certain about that. Greg Dworkin is texting me furiously behind the scenes with all of his stories. Justice says we're fine. Everything's rolling today. No technical problems so far. Cross your fingers. Keep them crossed. And pardon my coughing fit, by the way. I'm horribly ill and on death's door. I note that, I note that Matthew Gertz has noted, he's a research director at Media Matters, that Fox and Friends has their finger on the pulse of the important stories the rest of the media won't cover. They put up a chart, I guess. What, is Fox and Friends the morning thing? Did they do this morning? Put up a handy chart of media coverage this week of Hillary's coughing fit, as it says, noting that ABC News gave a total of 15 seconds. Can you imagine? 15 seconds on Monday and 0 seconds on Tuesday to the fact that Hillary Clinton coughed the other day. Literally, that's where we are. NBC News with 0 seconds both days. Imagine that. CBS also 0 seconds both days. No word on Fox itself, of course. But that would be an interesting addition to the chart. It's interesting that they left Fox off. And two, I'd love to know how long did they spend on Hillary's coughing fit. As you know, she died yesterday. And we're back to square one with our nominee dead. What are we going to do? I don't know. This is why, of course, it's an important point for them to cover how she had a coughing. I mean, there really is a section of the country, 25, I guess, % of the country who believes she's deathly ill, and that was her death rattle. And only ABC News, I guess, for 15 seconds, and Fox 24/7 has been willing to cover the truth. Okay, so we're up to date on that one, but yes, good morning. Thank you for joining us. We've got plenty to talk about. Bill in Portland, Maine gives us a nice morning tweet. Daily Coast Radio is live now. Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman. Once in a while I ought to identify myself during the program, but so far so good. No one has been terribly interested in exactly who's speaking to them in the morning, and I'm happy to keep it that way. David Waldman has Trump's plan to defeat ISIS, which is, of course, you would have found out yesterday if you were on Twitter, tell his generals, once he acquires them in the hostile takeover of the United States, tell generals to give him a plan to defeat ISIS. And that's not even a joke, although Bill is more than adept at writing them. He just ripped this one from the headlines. That's true. He announced his plan yesterday to defeat ISIS. It's been a secret up to now, and it turns out that the reason is that he doesn't have one. His plan is he's going to ask generals to come up with a plan, which is not a bad plan all by itself. It is what they do, so I think they'll be pretty comfortable with it. But I like that he put a time limit on it. This is how he becomes a resolute business leader. He says, I'm going to give you 30 days to come up with a plan. And then you put it on my desk, and then I guess I'll do that plan. And that's how I'll do it. And stupid Obama, he never asked his generals to come up with a plan for defeating ISIS within a time frame. Which, of course, if you put anything else in time frame, it's a date certain and a clear sign of our impending withdrawal from all this. But okay, this would be a time frame for getting into it, which we already are and we already did. What's your plan? In 30 days, I want you to tell me that we should be bombing ISIS. Okay, that should be no problem because we are bombing ISIS. Yes, but we're not bombing the hell out of ISIS. We're bombing the maybe, I guess we're probably up to like the bombing the darn it out of ISIS. I want to get up to hell, and if we can, let's get right past, screw them, bomb the, I don't know. What else can you bomb out of them? All right, I guess we can move up to bombing the crap out of them after that. if we can make some more bombs. Let's just get the production of bombs up. So that's his plan. My plan, of course, is to have that plan on my desk in 29 days. So I pwned his ass on that one. And there you go. That's my 7-minute abs plan for defeating ISIS. Trump says he wants his plan in 30 days. I do 29. If he beats me with 28, look out. 27's coming. And so on down the line. So that's a pretty good plan. Except, of course, he also has spent the entirety of his campaign saying the generals, they don't know anything. I know more than the generals about ISIS. Believe me. I mean, he really did say that. So that's a pretty shocking thing. So I know more about it than generals do, but I'm going to give the generals, I guess, 30 days to find out as much as I know, and then give me the plan that I already had in my head because I know it so well. One thing he also knows is Pam Bondi. She's not a thing, of course. She's a human being, damn it, and we owe her that much respect. She is, after all, a practicing attorney, I believe. I mean, she's the attorney general. I don't know if you have to be a practicing attorney in Florida to be the Attorney General, but I think it's probably generally expected of you. And the last couple of months have been all about, I don't really know anything about Pam Bondi. Not sure. I'm just an unfrozen caveman billionaire. Your Attorney Generals scare and frighten me. I don't know them. I didn't speak to her. Of course, that's been revised, I think. I didn't speak to her about sending her the money and her dropping the case, which then I think has since been revised again to, I didn't tell her it was a bribe when I sent her the money. We're down to that now. And Huffington Post has some fantastic pictures of this person he doesn't know and never spoke to sitting next to him at a $3,000 plate fundraiser that he held for her at Mar-a-Lago with engraved invitations and everything. I don't know, we didn't speak. And then, of course, there are pictures of him with his mouth open and you can't actually see the words coming out, but it's pretty clear that he's talking to her, but not about anything corrupt, I'm sure. Anyway, Greg Dworkin is here. His mouth is open and waiting for words to come out. I
just want to make sure I don't cough.
Yeah, right. Please don't. You'll drop dead on the spot. I'm sure. Oh, my God. I think they timed her coughing. The only report I've seen of it is Fox saying, oh, my God, 4 minutes and 20 seconds. I didn't.
Yeah, well, it's probably the same person who filmed the so-called seizure.
Yes.
Right, and ran everything in slow motion and all of that.
Was it on TV?
It reminds me, a lot of Bill Frist trying to diagnose people from a distance. Really stupid. I don't know why they do it. But basically, think of it this way. Trump is losing. Clinton's winning. It's likely going to be the end result. I have some stories about that. But watch Fox with that in mind and watch the meltdown happen when it turns out that some of them figure it out. They dimly know it now. Dimly is a good adjective to describe Fox in general. But I don't know if you're following on Twitter, for example, the current argument between Jonah Goldberg and Sean Hannity.
I saw that there was one. I saw a Hannity riposte, but I didn't.
Well, yeah, Hannity is basically saying if
I don't know what that means.
Clinton wins and Trump loses, all you never Trumpers, you own this. That's basically his theme.
I see.
And gives example. How can you allow somebody for president who doesn't use the words radical Islam?
All right.
Said to Jonah Goldberg, for example. And, some of the comments back are just, semi-hysterically funny because Hannity is having a meltdown, as he often does, when it turns out he figures that his, candidate of choice just isn't doing that well.
Well,
so that's kind of fun to watch, and you should take a look at Fox and follow the whole thing, in that vein. For example, I'll give you just one. Sean writes, Jonah, writing to Jonah Goldberg at NRO, do you prefer a POTUS who can say the words radical Islam or one who refuses to say the words? And Goldberg writes back, Sean, do you prefer a billionaire who said dodging the clap while bed hopping in the 70s was his personal Vietnam? It's pretty good.
I mean, there's a lot of material.
Basically, that's how the Twitter discussion is going. Do you think these guys are winning? I don't think so. Is there a civil war in the Republican Party and among conservatives? You bet. Or as Sarah Palin would say, you betcha also.
Yeah, right. Palin
Remember her? The one that looks like a policy wonk compared to Trump?
Right. Well, she's been on my mind lately as I have been getting transcripts of various things that Trump has said. He's getting more and more jumbled. And I noticed that yesterday the big piece was circulating how he started to speak about how he was going to defeat ISIS.
Which is important because there's a military forum tonight.
Right. And then the sentence ends up him talking about his latest polls. And he doesn't even mention ISIS.
From one thing to another thing, and the next thing,
he's gone.
You know what it's like? It's like you and me in the morning when I come on and you kind of indulge me and let me speak over you all the time, like I'm doing right now in my New York fashion. And then I say to you, but enough about me. What do you think about what I've been saying?
And I just wander off into another corner. He does it in one by himself, two in the course of a single sentence. I'm watching the punctuation and these things. He wanders off into a corner and blah, 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 blah. And he never did get around to saying the word ISIS, by the way. And that's, I guess, a big hang-up for Sean Hannity. He won't say the words radical Islam. This was a sentence about ISIS, and he never got to it.
It's a magic spell. If you don't say the right words, how are things supposed to happen?
True.
Meanwhile, you saw the one about, I didn't know if you did this in the intro. I missed a few seconds of it. Did you do the one about Gingrich talking about Clinton coughing?
No, I didn't, but that's on the radar, too.
Because he started coughing while he's critiquing Clinton's coughing. And then says, but this one is different than Clinton's.
Yes.
And then goes on to say, you have to understand that when you go around speaking a whole lot, your voice gets dry, and these things happen. But not with Clinton, because in her case, it's a complete total illness. Right? And there he is coughing his way through it. And people have reminded me back in 92, and actually I think it was way different. Bill Clinton has a lot of allergies, and there's many, many times that he's gone out speaking. He sounds incredibly hoarse, and he coughs, and that's what happens when you go out and speak all the time. That probably happened in 2012. I think part of him stumping for Obama is he basically went out and talked literally till he was hoarse. Till he lost his voice.
Yes, I do recall that being the case.
But, of course, when Gingrich does it, obviously he only does it to make money because he only does anything to make money. Well,
that's definitely true. Speaking of which, he said that the reason...
I only cough when you pay me to cough on the air.
It's $20 a hack there. He said, I fly a lot. You see, I fly around a lot and my throat gets dry.
Right. Clinton doesn't. I mean, she just has a plane for reporters, but she doesn't really fly around a lot, right?
Right.
So let's talk about some stories from this morning. We'll cover some briefly just so that we make sure that people know. And
how about my polls?
How about your polls?
How am I doing? Well, I'm great. Okay. Oh, I was just doing a Trump there.
How about this one?
Okay.
Larry Levitt tweets, the glass is half empty. The ACA, that's the Obamacare marketplace, is facing challenges. The glass half full. The uninsured rate is at its lowest point ever.
Okay.
The insurance rate, percentage of adults age 18 to 64 who were uninsured at the time of the interview.
Uninsured?
At March 2016. The uninsured rate.
Oh, uninsured. Okay.
Is incredibly low. For 45 to 64-year-olds, it's 8.1.
All right.
And for overall, I think the overall is the lowest in history. Let's see if we can get the total.
Overall is Tim Davis's favorite outfit.
Yeah. I saw that Dan Diamond had tweeted this earlier. And, it's a phenomenal reminder, if you will.
Yes.
Of what's actually at stake when you talk policy. It's below 9%.
Okay, yeah, right.
Never below 9% before. It's lower than it was in 2015 and way lower than 2014. So I will just send that over so Scott Anderson can include that in the round later. But it's really nice little chart there. So that's what we're talking about.
On that list.
I want to highlight some reporters, particularly one reporter that I really like to follow. Yes, Tim Lang, Meteor Blades, was quite right to point out that a lot of the Bondi Trump stuff comes from reporting from the Orlando Sentinel, which in and of itself has requested a federal probe of Pam Bondi because as Attorney General, it's not something that can happen in Florida.
Yeah, that's a problem. She's supposed to be doing that about other people is the idea.
Exactly.
And, yeah, okay.
So they get a lot of credit for that. But David Fahrenthold at the Washington Post has done some incredibly good reporting recently.
We could just have him
Today's
do it.
story, for example, liberal watchdog group to ask IRS to investigate Trump Foundation's political gift, talking about the Bondi thing. And he brought it up a few days ago. And the Orlando Sentinel story, I think, was in 2013 when this was very first reported. So they get a lot of credit for doing that a long time ago. But Fahrenthold has been cataloging all of the claims that Trump made about him giving charitable gifts.
Yes.
Every time Trump says, I gave such and such, then Fahrenthold goes and traces it down. He's called over 300 charities and painstakingly tried to make clear, first of all, how much has Trump actually given? Way less than he says he did. And secondly, if he did give, where was it from? Often from the foundation and or using other people's money.
Yeah, almost always.
To fill in something that he himself promised to do. So I think that was all incredibly useful.
It was. And you'd think they'd give him a computer at some point. He's doing this with a pen and paper, I see. He
right.
tweets
I see
there's
a nice tweet from Francis Lamb, by the way. We give reporters a very hard time, and I think especially cable reporters, and rightly so, because they do an awful job in terms of disproportionality.
You're adding this now. Did Francis say that?
No, what Francis said is journalism. It's a tough job with insane pressure and pretty crappy pay. On the other hand, everybody hates you.
Yes, but he'll make you a nice
and I think he's right.
treat afterwards. Yeah, that sounds about right. And we do give them a hard
But we're
time.
good reporters. I mean, we should give them credit is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, right. You get caught up in it, and we are always saying, oh, journalism this and that. And, of course, journalists often indulge the same instinct right back. I don't know how many times I've had to read through their throwing their arms in the air and sighing theatrically about how all Clinton supporters will attack you if you even ask legitimate questions or what have you. And I don't know why they lose it on Twitter. I guess maybe the 140 character limitation just makes that kind of nuance weird. But yeah, well, they're getting fed up, and that's because for the first time ever, readers talk back in real time where everybody can see it.
Right.
I know, it's troublesome. They do good work.
They do
some of
very
them
good work. They are incredibly thin-skinned sometimes.
Yeah.
There's major exceptions. There's people who, relate and talk to their readers on Twitter, which I love. But there's others who, as soon as you criticize them, just make some kind of snarky remark as like, everybody hates us, therefore we must be doing it right.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
That's not going to work at all. Speaking of newspapers, here's a first, at least a first in 70 years. And the major theme is that CNN came out with this outlier poll. Okay, and don't unskew it. That's terrible. Chuck Todd tried doing that on
Really?
press yesterday and is getting excoriated for it today. And he's one of those, well, if everybody's yelling at me, I must be doing it right.
For unskewing the polls.
Yeah, don't ever do that.
All right.
Point out that it's an outlier. Point out that the likely voter screen is art and not science, as Armando did. But don't try to unskew the polls. That's a mistake.
What did he do? All right. Well, never mind.
Well,
Yes.
he said, listen, if you take the CNN numbers and you use the 2012 who showed up according to exit polls, then Clinton would be ahead. Don't. I mean, first of all, 2016 isn't 2012. Second, the census data is a lot more accurate than exit poll data. And thirdly, it's a complete waste of time. Just look at the registered voter, the RV part of the poll, because they are a good pollster and they do tell you that. And it turns out Clinton's ahead by 3, and just go with that for now. Don't even apply LV, likely voter screens, until October. Especially this year when nobody knows who a likely voter really is.
That's true. All right.
So just do that. You could explain that, and you don't have to unskew the poll. But here's the first time in 70 years, the Dallas Morning News yesterday said we can't endorse Trump because he's unfit. Today, we recommend Hillary Clinton for president. The last time that they recommended a Democrat for president, his name was Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
that was when he was running. They didn't just randomly
Yeah,
do
they
that
didn't just do
last
it
week.
yesterday. I mean, it was like 70 years
He's
ago.
dead, but we really liked him. Nothing like that.
Yeah. In
Okay.
fact, we endorse him this year because we like him better than the two that were running.
Right. Well, I thought they might have resorted to that. Well, okay, it's been a while, Dallas.
That's pretty remarkable. And that comes on the heels of yesterday's 50-state SurveyMonkey polling from Washington Post suggesting that Texas is very close.
All right. 50 monkeys say so.
Yeah. So I think that was all pretty interesting. Other interesting things today, there's a new story. This one happens to be from The Hill, who covered it, on the Moody's economic model. There's more than polling to try to figure out who's going to win. We have these models. And the modeling done by Moody's is fairly decent, Moody's Analytics. Low gas prices and President Obama's rising popularity are bolstering Hillary Clinton's chances of winning the White House, according to a closely followed economic election model from Moody's Analytics. The August model forecasts Clinton will notch a win over Trump, in part thanks to historically low gas prices and Obama's popularity. The model, which chooses a party, not a candidate, awards electoral college votes based on state-by-state outcomes, and the latest forecast puts 16 states, including D.C., firmly in Democratic territory, with 11 more leaning, for a total of 332 electoral votes.
Okay.
And it's actually increasing. The headline is Moody's economic model finds Clinton pulling away from Trump.
Oh. Well, all right. I mean, I'll take what we can. It's hard to know what to do with things like that. That's like it's
Just
a
note
legit
it. I mean,
model.
don't go to the bank with it. Just note it.
Yeah, I just prefer the one about which one are you going to vote for. Oh, okay, that's a good idea.
Well, I like who's going to win. I think that's even better.
Oh yeah, right. Well, at least it has something to do with the election. But okay, I see. It's a complicated thing. It's a great way of reminding everybody that elections, like everything else, is a nuanced issue.
Right, and election forecasts are varied.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to collect them all. If they all say somebody's going to win, chances are that person is ahead. Here is a new battleground poll, which looks at battleground states, and that is from GWU, and it has Clinton 42, Trump 40. Now, the last time they did it was in April. I think that was a 6-point Clinton lead, so it's narrowed a bit, which everybody acknowledges, but still Clinton ahead. And last cycle, in 2012, they did a last poll for Politico, and it was a dead heat.
Oh.
Back in 2012, in November. So whether they have a final poll, we shall see. For right now, it's just, semi-interesting. A lot of these polls, and we'll get to the Arizona one in a minute, which has Clinton up by a point or two. These are a little bit surprising because you don't always expect what you actually get. This particular battleground poll asks a whole bunch of other questions about, what are you worried about, what do you care about, and then eventually gets to, who are you actually voting for. And in this particular poll, I think there's a number of undecided still. I'm going to try to see if I can find that one. If the election for president were held today, and you had to make a choice for whom would you vote, and the final here is Trump definitely 29, Trump probably 9, Clinton definitely 34, Clinton probably 6. So her voters are a little bit more committed than his voters are. Johnson gets 10 total, and Stein gets 3 total. Stein's not going to be really a factor. But then they ask, still thinking about the upcoming election, if for some reason the candidate that you just mentioned was not available on your ballot, which of the other candidates would be your next choice? In other words, if Stein and Johnson weren't there, who would you vote for, Trump or Clinton?
I see. All right.
And Trump 26, Clinton 34.
Okay. Well,
right? And then,
good.
so what does that tell you? It tells you on the one hand, as other polls have observed, that the two of them take a little bit more from Clinton than they do from Trump, making it a little bit closer. But on the other hand, if they fade and those voters have to decide what to do, there are more Clinton voters in the end than Trump voters out of that pool.
Yeah, I mean they will fade. I guess there's nobody expects them not to show up on the ballot. Although not all the states will have both of those guys.
Right. So are you voting for Trump or against Clinton?
Yeah.
For Trump 54, against Clinton 43. the other way around, for Clinton 60 against Trump 37.
Okay.
So I mention that because you'll hear a lot of this, oh, well, this is a terrible election. Everybody hates everybody. Everybody's just voting against the other person. That's actually not true.
Okay.
That's why polls help us. They tell us that things aren't true that you thought were.
Yeah, that's true. I that's a tough question, in particular, I think, for, involving, as it involves Trump, because he's so odious that, I mean, I don't know how I
you
would
can do both.
that.
I like Clinton and hate Trump, so therefore, can I say both?
I mean, I'd want to. And I guess if I were being polled on it, I would say I would like very much to register how much I hate Trump. So I think I will say I'm voting against Trump, even though, I'm voting for her, and that's what she'd want me to say, I think. But I got to tell you, I really want this on the record. That guy's ridiculous.
Right. Meanwhile, Arizona poll, live telephone survey found Clinton, the former Secretary of State, leading Trump, the celebrity billionaire, 35.1 to 33.5. Always suspect polls with decimal points in them, but there it is. So it's 35-34 in the traditional red state, well within the poll's margin of error of 3.3 percentage points. Third-party candidates captured another 8. Libertarian Gary Johnson was supported by 7. Green Party nominee Jill Stein by 1.5.
Close race among live telephones.
But here's the important stat here. Another 22.9% haven't decided yet.
Okay.
So with 23% undecided, the race could go either way. It's hard to imagine Clinton winning. You have to figure those are disaffected Republicans in that 23% who haven't decided yet. But again, as we talked about the other day, at this late juncture, if you really haven't decided, a lot of you are going to stay home and not vote at all. So Clinton has a chance there. Tim Kaine is campaigning there. She's running some ads there. So that'll be interesting. And whether that's a head fake to try to pin Trump down with limited resources, or whether it's something else entirely unclear. But if Texas and Arizona are in play, Clinton is not losing.
Yeah, that'll make things fun and interesting. I wonder whether he's capable of falling for a head fake. You give him a head fake.
That implies thinking
what are
about
you
what
doing with your head? I don't understand.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how well he reads that.
All right, 2 reads that I think that are quite useful, and ones that we should at least highlight today, and they'll be in the Pundit Roundup tomorrow. This one from Shane Goldmacher in Politico. Shane used to write for National Journal. Hillary Clinton's invisible guiding hand. Meet the little-known, highly paid statistician masterminding the Democratic candidate's campaign strategy. His name is Elan Kriegel. Elankrieegel, makes all the decisions about where to spend money, what's going on, where the campaign is going to go, why she goes to Milwaukee and not St. Paul, those kinds of decisions, even what the emails say when they go out. And it's a fascinating view of analytics. It's kind of a follow-up to the very nice analytic book that came out, which I'm of course now forgetting.
Moneyball.
Well, it's basically a Moneyball look at the entire campaign.
Yeah, if we can't remember the book, just get that one.
Right. That is a definite good one. But there's a New York Times reporter who did one on the 2012 campaign, which basically looked at the same idea.
Oh.
And the Obama camp was just so far ahead of the Romney camp when it came to analytics. And the Romney camp is looking like the Obama camp when you compare Trump to Romney, let alone compare him to where Clinton is. Clinton has moved way beyond what Obama was doing.
Yeah. And
Trump is way behind what Romney was doing.
I can believe. I'm going to get a yard sign that says, I love analytics.
Right. So it's great. Zach Moffat, who served as Mitt Romney's digital director in 2012, was already worried about this back during the Republican primaries. In an interview then, Moffat feared that whoever emerged as the GOP nominee would be perilously handicapped when it came to data analytics, just as Romney had been compared to Obama, who, like Clinton, had honed an analytics operation more than a year in advance. If you're not prepared for it, you can't catch up. You can't have a baby in 3 months. It's just the reality of life.
Wow.
And then he says, I tried. I think he meant he tried to catch up.
Oh.
I don't think he meant he tried to have a baby in 3 months.
It's not going to work.
But, that's the way it's written.
Right.
That's the way it's written because that's what he said.
Well, he ran out of time.
Right.
Okay,
Some
well,
Republicans
I like
aren't just
analytics.
nervous about losing to Clinton in November. They're alarmed at the possibility of falling multiple cycles a generation behind in creating a culture of data-intensive campaigns. Romney hardly had an autonomous analytics department. Trump has called data overrated. Kriegel, meanwhile, is incubating the next generation of Democratic talent. His team rivaled the size of Trump's entire headquarters operation for much of the primary. The no-name analysts of 2016 who will emerge as the key players in 2018 and 2020. Right? The specifics,
Yes.
such as the large-scale academic-style experiments the department has run, are closely guarded for fear of giving away any advantage. Kriegel himself declined to comment for the story, but Robbie Mook, the campaign manager, spoke glowingly of Kriegel and expansively of his influence. His hand has guided almost every aspect of what we do.
Well, that's a remarkable compliment.
Right. It's a great read. Staff in Clinton's analytics department sit under a sign that hangs from the ceiling with the words "statistically significant" printed on it.
Ah, okay. Or maybe I could get a sign that says that.
Right? The team's computers run 400,000 simulations of the fall campaign in what amounts to a massive stress test of the possibilities on November 8th. That way, in morning calls with senior staff, Kriegel can deliver any key findings.
Cool. And then
One Democratic strategist, an Obama veteran with knowledge of the Clinton campaign, marveled at Kriegel's sway in Brooklyn. I've never seen a campaign that's more driven by the analytics. It's not as if Kriegel's data has ever turned around Clinton's campaign plane. It's that her plane never takes off without Kriegel's data charting its path in the first place.
that I can believe.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Trump,
Did
let's just
he,
say he doesn't do it that way.
How long did he say she should have coughed for?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I want to know.
The other piece, which is unusual for me to cite because I don't always like what he writes, but this is Josh Kraushaar writing in National Journal, which for this particular article is free, no paywall.
Oh, good.
The problem with presidential polling, be sure to check the methodology before getting carried away by the hype.
All right.
And he talks about the CNN poll and the Washington Post 50-state Survey Monkey poll and says the divergent results are an important reminder that when looking at survey data, it's crucial to look at the methodology behind them. And then I have to read you something from Charles Franklin after that, which he wrote at Armando's request and mine last night, which is really good. It's crucial to look at the methodology behind them. CNN, out of its interest to trumpet fresh post-holiday numbers, conducted much of its poll over the long weekend, which most pollsters avoid because so many people are away on vacation. I heard somebody speculate, you know who goes away on vacation? People who make more money.
Yes.
Well, do you know who Clinton voters are? People who
yeah.
make more money.
That's true.
So if you're going to poll and they're away, guess what? You're not going to find that the Clinton people as easily as you're going to find Trump people, so Trump's going to be ahead.
Yeah, I would say
that's just one example of why people don't like to poll on holidays.
Likely true, especially Labor Day, end of the summer thing. That's a stable job, stable income, moneyed vacation weekend in terms of being away.
Right, it's a
Staycation
valid
for the rest
criticism.
of us.
Here's another one. SurveyMonkey, meanwhile, and these are both reputable polling organizations, just criticisms of individual things that they decided to do. SurveyMonkey polled its respondents for nearly a month. All the way back to the second week of August, the pollster contacted a huge sample of 75,000 people, allowing it to credibly post its findings from all 50 states. The exact number was 74,886 voters, but it also ensured that many of the reactions were dated, making it harder to draw any firm conclusions from the results.
True.
So again, as we talked yesterday, it's better to look at large swaths of people like college-educated, et cetera, than try to make sense of individual states that don't make a lot of sense. Found Trump leading in Ohio and Iowa, for example, trailing in Texas and up just 2 in Mississippi. You really need to suspend disbelief in order to believe that Trump will win Ohio but lose Mississippi.
Yes. But that's what happens when you have monkeys doing your surveying.
Right. You found Colorado competitive, whereas other polls haven't. And he says it's not to pick on pollsters, just to raise an eyebrow at the accompanying hype. Here's the reality. From a mix of polling, reporting, and what's happening in the field. And we just had a little field conversation about the analytics stuff. The presidential race is tightening a bit from Clinton's post-convention boomlet. Her favorability ratings are getting worse, but Trump's aren't getting better. In turn, Clinton's standing in the polls has dropped even as Trump has continued to stagnate, with the Republicans still below the 40% mark in most polls. Remember, this is a conservative guy. The fundamentals are still alarming for Trump. I mean, the reporter writing is a conservative guy. The fundamentals are still alarming for Trump. He's bleeding support with GOP women and college-educated white voters while being badly outspent on the airways, even if Trump managed to belatedly consolidate Republican support, a big if. See that Arizona poll. He still needs to win constituencies that view his campaign deeply negatively. It is unlikely the fundamentals will change all that much before November. Early voting begins in South Dakota and Minnesota on September 23rd.
That is early.
Early voting starts before the first debate, with 6 other states allowing earlier absentee voting this month. Trump's negatives have remained constant. The clock is running out. So basically, yeah, there's the debates. Yeah, there is something major that could happen. But all told, Clinton holds a clear advantage in the presidential race, he writes, with the fundamentals having remained consistent since the conventions. Don't buy the hype in the polls. The battleground map remains remarkably stable and similar to 2012, with Clinton holding a comfortable lead outside the margin of error. It'll take a scandal or a surprise to upset the race.
Okay.
That's the consensus from the professionals, like Stu Rothenberg and Charlie Cook and those folks who actually analyze this for a living. The polls are nice. They give you an idea, but don't get carried away about individual polls that bounce up and down. The general trend of the polls is to tighten a little bit, but Clinton has led from the beginning. There's really no point in the aggregate where she has not led, except for the Real Clear Politics aggregate. They have one spot during the Republican convention where Trump led by a point or two. All the other aggregates don't even have that. So she's ahead. She's been ahead for over a year. She's going to win.
Yeah. That's good news, and it's great that
just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We should tell people about where things stand in the race.
All right. Can I change the subject to something really disgusting?
All right.
You sure?
Yeah.
I had to.
Carefully.
I mean, I just thought this was difficult to read, but important to read. It's in New York Magazine by Reeves Wiedemann, and it's called The Sandy Hook Hoax. Lenny Posner used to believe in conspiracy theories until his son's death became one. He's the father of one of the kids that got shot, and it's a really weird, which I'll leave for you to decide whether to do much with it or not, story about Sandy Hook truthers and where they come from and who they are and how you talk to them and why they think the way they do and how you get them to change their mind if you can. And sometimes you scratch your head and say, these people are just nuts.
Yes.
And they are. But this is just a little deeper dive into it for those who might be interested.
I can't decide whether I should be interested.
That's exactly my reaction when I read the article.
Yeah.
In fact, when I read I don't know if I'm going to read it. Let me read this. Okay. This is really amazing, and I don't know if I want to keep reading this, but of course I finished it.
Oh, okay. Well, sometimes
it's one of those.
Train wreck style, you look through it after all.
Right. There's no good news that comes out of it, except for some of them could be convinced to be sane. And then when that happens, they get ostracized because it's a cult.
Yeah, well, right. You get pushed out of the...
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. The last piece I said I was going to do is this Charles Franklin piece. This is a polling primer. I have it right up here on the Pundit Roundup, but here's how it goes. Charles Franklin says, and who's Charles Franklin? Charles Franklin is the fellow who helped develop Pollster.com with Mark Blumenthal. And he's the director of the Marquette Law School poll, a very respected Wisconsin poll that tells you what's going on in Wisconsin. So he has this piece about likely voter samples, and he says, I feel the need for a tweet storm on likely voter samples today, getting lots of questions about a poll with results many don't like. And he actually does this tweet storm style. And he just put it on Medium so people could read it, just like I often put stuff on Storify. But he did it, so I didn't have to. Tomorrow could be the other way. Let's worry about methods and likely voters before knowing if we like a particular result. His point there is he hates when people say, I hate the CNN poll, it's this and that and everything else. Why do you hate it so much? Because I don't like the results. Now let me go back and tell you why I don't like the results. Well, don't do that. Look at the methods and criticize the methods, and then look at the result.
Okay.
Nobody does that, but he's a professional. That's what he does. Live by the method, die by the method. Don't blame the method when you don't like the result. Love the method when you like the result. That's how it goes. So here's the deal. Identifying likely voters matters because only those who show up affect the election. Opinion of non-voters matter not at all for outcome. But likelihood of voting is not a fixed attribute. It responds to circumstances, enthusiasm, and closeness of the state.
Good.
If you're looking at a state. Ann Seltzer made these very same points yesterday on, with all due respect, when she was on talking about the CNN poll. Don't throw it out. It's a good pollster, and sometimes you get results like this. In fact, shifts in who is a likely voter can drive changes in polls at least as much as changes in candidate preference. That's a point Armando had made online. That if you take and the reason I like the registered voters, and maybe Charles will get to this a little bit later in this, is that we've been looking at registered voters from months ago. And so if you want to see if there's a change or not, that's the best place to look right now.
I guess that's true.
Especially if this is our first likely voter poll ever, so don't compare it to other polls. That's what the Quinnipiac poll said when they came out with their 10-point Clinton lead.
Yeah.
But the choices did they make that made likely voter different than registered voter? That's in the art of polling. In fact, shifts in who is likely voter can drive changes in polls at least as much as changes in candidate preference. For this reason, I prefer, Charles says, the much more stable RV population as a basis of assessing change during the campaign. Hey, me too. So do a lot of people who follow this regularly.
I guess so. It stands to reason. Sometimes it's not the best.
Mark Murray made the same point on Twitter from NBC. I think that a lot of us look at the RV stuff because at this particular point in time, it's really hard to figure out who is a likely voter. And maybe it's a little too early to do it in October. But as election approaches, LVs begin to be more certain of voting or not. And it makes sense to use LVs late in the campaign. Because remember, only the voters who vote really matter, not the ones who don't.
True.
No point in looking at all adults. If you're not registered to vote, you don't have an opinion. That matters.
Likely true.
You can be dismissed. You can be erased. You can be eliminated. And so, in theory, you only want to look at likely voters, but it requires you to know who they are, and that's very hard. So how to measure LV, he says. There are 4 broad approaches. Most media polls use number 1 or number 2, and campaigns use number 3 or number 4. Haven't illuminated those yet, but we will. Many polls, including my MU Law poll, use a very simple LV screen. In my case, are you registered, and are you certain to vote?
Okay.
I also include unregistered who are sure they will register, but key is certainty of voting. If you're not registered, but you say, I promise you I am going to, and I'm absolutely certain I'm going to vote, you're a likely voter, even though you're unregistered.
All right, fair enough. That's a permissive model.
My question offers absolutely certain to vote, very likely 50-50, don't think will vote. I use absolutely certain as my definition of LV. Very likely doesn't count.
All right.
And in the last 2 MU Law poll samples, 77% said absolutely certain.
Okay. So
we
likely
eliminated
voter is
the
not
third
someone who says, I'm likely to vote. That's tough.
Yeah. But you say, I don't know. Then, okay, I take you at your word.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, voting, really, your basic likely voter is the person who has no doubt. What do you mean, am I gonna? Yeah, I'm gonna.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. It's what you do. Somebody who says, yeah, probably. I mean, what is that? It's like November, right? You say,
right.
Okay.
Right. So in Wisconsin, we'll see turnout around 80 to 85% of registered voters in November.
All right.
Right? And the late polls that he does reach about 80% likely voter. So it's close to what the actual numbers are.
Okay.
And he says some LVs won't vote and some very likely will, but the track record shows a simple measure is a pretty good track record.
Yeah.
And you know what? He runs a pretty good poll. And then he gives some mathematical reasons for why it matches the exit polls pretty well, so he's okay with that. Then he adds, but this doesn't mean a simple measure is best. Pew and Gallup and others use a lengthy battery of questions, such as, did you vote last time? Where's your precinct? In elections you've been eligible, have you always voted? If you don't know where your precinct is and you don't know where your voting place is, you're not a likely voter. That's the way Gallup does it.
Yeah.
They have fine-tuned these batteries. Remember, Gallup got it wrong. They have fine-tuned these batteries to improve LV identification beyond a simple screen. In principle, it's a better measure, but in practice, it isn't evident that their LV measure is significantly better than a simple measure. In fact, it may introduce more uncertainty. Variation in the several components induce variation in likely voters. So, number 1 and number 2 are basically ask people if they'll vote either simply or with a bunch of items. The advantage is people's responses will reflect their enthusiasm.
Right. Oh.
Are you ready for that?
I was not prepared, and I should have been because it came up before. Where is my enthusiasm? Did I move it? Oh, my God.
Yeah, you have to go find it. Will reflect their enthusiasm and how it waxes and wanes. This is important as LV can change. As one side waxes and the other wanes, the LV pop will shift, and so will vote. This is a feature and not a bug. That's just like Party ID, right? Party ID is not fixed. It goes up and down, which is another point that Ann Seltzer made. How is it that the CNN poll said there's more Republicans than Democrats voting? Because sometimes that's what people tell you.
I guess you're stuck with it if that's what they say.
Yeah. What if they change their mind and they don't want to be Democrats anymore? Basically what it is, she pointed out, is in the CNN poll. The people who are Democrats remain the same, but the people who said they were Republicans went up because the number of people who said they were independents went down because the independents tend to be soft Republicans.
Yeah.
So in the CNN model, what happened is that Trump was able to convince soft Republicans to come back. Not shocking, not impossible. In the numbers that they say, probably not, and that's why it's an outlier, but it's not crazy. That's the point she was making. But it's a feature that recognizes that elections depend both on turnout and on preference. That's a more complicated picture. And so focusing on RV samples more stable, but ignores turnout to focus on preference. LV brings turnout in, but then is uncertain. Okay, so how else might we measure LV? Method number 3 uses a statistical model of some sort, 538 style. Or maybe the analytics guy down over at Brooklyn headquarters for Clinton. Each election, the Current Population Survey, or CPS, a massive federal survey used to measure unemployment rate, includes turnout questions. Considered the best available measure, the CPS measures registration and turnout, but not vote choice. So if you're looking to see, how many women showed up, this is good, but not who they voted for.
Oh.
And this way of looking at what percentage of the population were women in the last election is better than exit polls. So don't use exit polls as your gold standard. This is the gold standard. And that's why it's hard to unskew polls based on 2012 exit polls. Among other reasons, the exit polls aren't the best measure, and another reason is that 2016 isn't 2012, so it could have changed.
Oh, well, yes, okay.
So, therefore, that's why all unskewing fails. But anyway, back to what he says. From the census measure, we have a good array of demographics, including age, education, sex, race, region, but not party ID. We can estimate a model of who turns out from these demographics and then apply that model to our own sample of voters. That can be in the form of predicted probability of votes based on this model and demographics measured in both this and our poll. Or it can be in the form of estimated demographic makeup of voters to which our sample of LVs is weighted. The advantage is that the CPS sample is over 100,000 cases with a very high response rate, and multiple years can be pooled. And I will add, so for example, if you're trying to figure out how many women vote, this is a good way to do it. The disadvantage is that the CPS is always the last election, not this one, so we have to estimate this year from past data, and the CPS doesn't have an enthusiasm or interest measure, just registered, voted or not, and demographics. The current polls have a better grasp of short-term enthusiasm, but the census may be a better measure of demographic propensity to vote.
Whoosh. Okay.
Right? So you have to guess which side is going to show up.
Yes, it's always.
Well, I can tell you what they did in past elections, but maybe this year is different.
But that, yeah.
For example, maybe white, high school educated or less voters are more enthusiastic than they usually are. So if I look at old census data, it's going to miss what's going on here. That's one example of how you try to, get it right.
Yeah. Well, all right. There's always some guesstimate.
Right. Method number 4.
That's right. I forgot.
Last one. Uses a listed sample from the voter list, a relatively new resource much used by campaigns. This is expensive, so that's why media polls don't do it. The voter list for most states provides not only names, but also past voting history, that is, which elections voted and which ones were skipped.
Okay.
The advantage of registration-based sampling, or RBS, is that we know these people are registered, and we have their vote history. So if you model on that, you have a really good idea of who actually showed up here in Connecticut at this local election, if you have those numbers. The disadvantage is the voter list necessarily omits new voters who registered for the first time this year, so you wouldn't have picked up Bernie voters.
Right, some.
With the voter list, one can establish a cutoff for how many past elections a person voted to be considered an LV, and of course you're going to miss all 18-year-olds if you do that, right? That calculation can be based on a statistical model as well, so campaigns like the lists, because it also indicates which district the voter lives in for Congress, state legislature, and municipality. And there's no reason in principle not to mix a list sample with questions about enthusiasm or certainty of voting exploiting vote history along with short-term enthusiasm, but at some point, you have to set a criteria for who to treat as an LV and include. And how do you validate that? Past poll accuracy based on the method. Congruence with other data like exit poll comparisons or internal comparison, or how well history predicts subsequent measured turnout. Each of these methods works pretty well. I compare my simple LV with CPS, which is the census data based on model and all of that, and I've seen no evidence in our polling that an alternative is unambiguously superior to my measure, but the others are not unambiguously worse either, so I opt for simple. But if I were doing list sampling, I would certainly welcome having vote history available to improve the LV model. That said, I'd want short-term measures of enthusiasm and commitment to voting. So what's to be done? All professional pollsters have done what I've done in one way or another. They're considered alternatives. They've compared measures to others. They've settled on an LV method they have confidence in. That's a professional judgment. Armando would call it secret sauce. Every pollster does it a little differently. But it's a legitimate, reasonable best guess based on methods and performance in terms of how they're going to do it. Sometimes you get it wrong. It looks like the Romney people got it really wrong back in 2012. And they lost when they thought that they were going to win. But most of the time you get it right.
Well, that must be why they do it as a business.
Yeah, from sample to sample, the LV results may vary a lot, partly for short-term enthusiasm shifts, partly for random error, and LV samples will always be smaller than RV samples, so random variation will be greater in the LV samples than the RV samples. Yet, many close observers become obsessed with LV samples before I think they're fully justified empirically. That leads to many polls, including mine, meaning the MU Law poll, reporting both RV and LV and providing LV estimates before their time. So he advises, this is Charles now, but I do the same thing, wait for September or even early October to give primacy to LV, but release both so everybody can see what's going on. The fundamental point is LV method is not to be blamed for results you don't like that CNN poll, unless it's also blamed for results you do like. Meaning, if you're going to say, I always do LV, then always do LV, and stop whining about what the results are.
Okay.
So that's pretty long, but I think it's great, and it's important now because now we're going to see pollsters like CNN, pollsters like Quinnipiac, who are starting to switch over to LV for the first time this cycle, and their numbers are going to look a little bit different. And so prepare for that, and take that into account, and don't panic, and maybe the next time they do the poll, they'll get it a little bit more right.
I think that helps a lot.
And look at the aggregates.
Yeah. Oh, well, that too. Which will smooth out the differences in LV modeling.
Yes.
Automatically for you. Okay.
Right, but it doesn't mean the poll sucks, or they're trying to put their finger on the scale, or they're doing it wrong on purpose, or they just want a horse race. Any of that nonsense.
Unless they're making up their numbers out of thin air, which has happened.
No, what does happen is that you want it to be a horse race when you've got 5 polls, 4 of them saying Clinton ahead, 1 of them saying Trump ahead, and you only talk about the Trump poll.
Yeah, well, okay.
That's making it a horse race. But that's guilt on the part of the reporter, not on the part of the pollster.
Yeah, it's usually their fault.
Well, okay. I think we're now prepared for that change over, and we'll understand exactly what it means. That is to say that we don't. That each pollster will have it mean something slightly different.
Right.
But we'll
exactly.
get that idea will be in our head once we see the shift from RV to LV.
Right. So just look for that and look at them both and compare RV if you really want to see if the race is changing or not changing. Mm-hmm. And this long stretch of interrupting David was presented as a public service.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate having all that information. By the way, I did note yesterday Phyllis Schlafly has shifted from LV to RV for this cycle.
Only in Chicago.
Right. Well, she's still ARD, I'm sure. The news will make it to the registrar soon enough, but
right, but definitely fair not to include her in an LV model. Of course, if you look at her voting record,
right. See, that's the problem.
She generally does vote, right, and that's why you always have to update the LVs for not what happened up until now.
They're not cheating. It's just I didn't know.
Right, and again, kudos to Armando who pushed Charles to write this thing.
Okay, well, good. The special sauce feature he's always wanted, and I knew that he knew what he was going to get out of it, but that way he can point to it and say, "This is why that's why I call it this." So this really is. He's got a point, but yeah, they do a great job at explaining.
Actually, that's not what he does. You know what he does?
What?
He tweets and says, "I'm right. Greg will give you the link."
Okay. Yeah, well, that's shorthand. That's
that works.
just the
that works fine.
That's the right. That's the cheap
we're
method
team.
that
We're there. We do
that
it.
Charles uses for LV. He could do it himself and provide you with the link and all that, but that's expensive. Only campaigns generally do that. He just says, "Greg's got it."
Yeah, he'll do it.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, that's my summary for today. Starting to work on tomorrow. Some of this stuff that you heard today will, in fact, show up on Daily Kos tomorrow, and that's the whole point of looking at it a day before it happens.
Yes.
Thank you so much for indulging me. I realize every time I listen to the podcast later, because I can't always catch the rest of it as I'm on my way to work, how much I wind up interrupting you in the morning. So, again, thank you for in putting up with that. But I'm a New Yorker. If I'm not interrupting you, it means I'm not listening.
Right. Well, I could just start playing sound effects at you. I found them again, right? So.
Okay.
Boring. Go, right?
What about enthusiasm?
Pull that one out. I will. That's now we'll have to always
Enthusiasms.
be at the
There you
ready.
go. All right. As long as we have them enthusiasms there,
Right.
we're good. Take care, and
Okay.
I will talk to you tomorrow. Friday I have a meeting, so won't be on the show.
Oh, okay. And a short week gets
Yep.
shorter. Okay.
It happens.
Thanks very much, Greg.
Take care.
Appreciate it. Thank you. You do the same. And let's play some more sound effects, I guess. Oh, I mean, it's been a while since they asked me to rank the call. That was an excellent call, in my opinion. And made better, I think, by sound effects.
Well, what the hell is supposed to do, you moron?
I don't know. Okay. Well, we have, what are we going to do for the rest of the day today? It is Wednesday, and so we anticipate our traditional, if you can call it that, call from Joan McCarter, who will tell us what happened, I assume, in the earlier part of the week as Congress began returning to Washington, D.C. And if she doesn't, I can tell you, they didn't do anything. There wasn't any Zika funding. But things are beginning to heat up in terms of trade paper coverage. That is to say, Washington, D.C. insider papers, The Hill, Roll Call, Daily Kos, I guess, etc. Coverage of things not being done and the reasons why they're not happening. But that's political season for you, so there's plenty to look at. Here you go. Here's some sound effects.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
And that's basically it for the news. By the way, I think that will serve as tribute to the passing of Gene Wilder, whose passing I don't think we even noted on the show, but was on my mind nonetheless, and I'm sure it was on everyone else's mind. The fact that I didn't report it doesn't mean it didn't happen. That should be taken as the answer for anything that I'm not covering. And if I'm not covering it and the after show's not covering it, then it might not have happened at all. If between the two of us it's not in here, then it's not news. Progressives need not worry about it. Don't listen to the fact that others are covering this stuff. It's all garbage from here on in. Okay, let's see. I have a number of tabs open. Let's see if we can't run through a few of them before we speak with Joan. And, of course, Pocket has 100 things tucked away in it. We mentioned the Pam Bondi story in brief this morning. I guess I'm overreacting to the story just a little bit, but overreading what Trump has said about her in the past. I mean, he hasn't literally said, I don't know who she is. I never met her. I've never heard her name before. He has admitted to considerably more than that. As he's been pressured in the past couple of weeks, he's been a little clearer about, I've known her for a long time. But, he's had to revise his story about this $25,000 thing. And now, of course, it turns out that there was even more than that. And Ivanka gave money, and a few others in the family perhaps gave some money. And in addition to all of this, Trump gave $125,000 more to the Republican Party of Florida, which is the chief bank against which Pam Bondi draws for running attorney general races for re-election there in Florida. It's not chiefly paid for out of a Pam Bondi for attorney general fund or anything like that. But he tried to insinuate, I think, early on that there just wasn't much of a relationship between them, when in fact as Huffington Post is reporting today. He hosted a $3,000 a head fundraiser for her at Mar-a-Lago, at which he was the special surprise, not surprise guest, but special guest. This according to the engraved invitation for the event. But yeah, he made much of the distance between them, and then it kind of got revised into it's really that we didn't talk about this particular $25,000 contribution. Oops, auto-playing video from the Huffington Post. Thanks a bunch. But then it sort of morphed into, we didn't talk about this particular donation, and then, when we did talk about it, I didn't say this is a bribe, so none of this counts somehow. Anyway, just so you're up to speed on things, I guess he never really said I don't know her. He has, in fact, in the past said, she's a good friend. We've known her for years. But it was insinuated that, I've never spoken to her before. And I think that's overreading I didn't talk to her about this particular contribution. But I don't care. Screw that guy. He's doing so much lying. What do I care if something gets read wrong? Or that I say something completely inaccurate about him. At this point, I don't even care anymore. Does that mean I'm sinking to his level? All right. You want to put it that way? Fine. I got no problem with it. I'm not running for anything. Trump held fundraiser for Pam Bondi at Mar-a-Lago after she dropped the investigation is the headline of the piece for the Huffington Post. The more interesting part, I think, once you get past the splashiness of the headline, I don't know, we're not that close, I didn't speak to her about this or that, fundraiser for at Mar-a-Lago, where you're the special guest with, by the way, Rudy Giuliani is the other special guest. The subheader is the more interesting of the two headlines here. The Republican Party of Florida paid much less for the venue than Trump's own campaign has paid. Mixing two stories. Yesterday's graft story from SV Date, if I'm still mangling his name in the same way as I mangled it yesterday, should be read alongside today's Huffington Post story. This one with 4 bylines on it. Let's see. Christina Willicke, Ben Walsh, Dana Labelson, I doubt it's Libelson, but L-I-E, Liebelson, and Sam Stein on that one. Why is the subheader more interesting? Because remember yesterday's story was that Trump was, once the RNC was on the hook for footing the bills and he was paying bills out of contributors' money and RNC money, the cost of renting Mar-a-Lago for campaign events went through the roof. Once Trump knew someone else's money was going to be reimbursing him for the use of the venue. When he feels like it, he lets Republicans, anyway, have Mar-a-Lago for cut rates. I think that's interesting. Why does he not offer himself cut rates? Because he's himself, and why not take more? So I don't know if they talk about the exact amount of money that it costs to do things there, but we'll see. Anyway, the reporting on this one, March 2014 is the date of the fundraiser. Donald Trump opened his 126-room Palm Beach resort Mar-a-Lago for $3,000 per person fundraiser, a $3,000 per person fundraiser for Pam Bondi, the Florida Attorney General who was facing a tough re-election campaign. She had, of course, recently decided not to investigate Trump University. Trump did not write a check to the Attorney General that night. The previous fall, his personal foundation, remember that's wrong and illegal, had given $25,000 to a pro-Bondi PAC, but by hosting her fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago and bringing in some of his own star power, yeah, right, Trump provided Bondi's campaign with a nice financial boost. Since he began his run for the White House, Trump has repeatedly claimed that Bondi is merely someone he has supported politically. But his fundraising efforts for her were extensive and varied. So even when you give him credit for saying, I know her, yeah, I support her politically too, that's another thing I do for her, it's understating the case by far. His fundraising efforts for her were, in fact, as they say, extensive and varied. In addition to the $25,000 donation from his foundation and the star-studded, so far I just see him and Rudy Giuliani. I don't think I would venture so far as to say studded about either or both of them. But anyway, he has the event at Mar-a-Lago, as it mentions here. Trump and his daughter Ivanka also gave $500 each to Bondi's campaign in the fall of 2013. When it comes to his money, he does it in increments of $500, which that's great. I'd love to have $500, I guess. But for him, you would think that's peanuts. He can't max out to her. $25,000 from the foundation, $500 from him. The following spring, anyway, following the fall of 2013 $500 donation. The following spring, Ivanka and her father donated another $125,000 to the Republican Party of Florida, Bondi's single biggest source of campaign funds. That is to say, the Republican Party of Florida is that biggest source. Then a picture of the nice engraved invitation, and I'm just scrolling through it looking for who are the other star-studded types that might warrant mention, and the answer is none. So here's your star-studded host committee, right? ADT, which what? Okay, that doesn't count. Sebastian Alexander. See if any of you recognize these names. Brian Ballard, maybe Floridians know these names. Mark Bellissimo, Brad Bondi, which I guess is not a star, but okay. Gaston Cantons. This is the scripty writing, so I'm not positive about all these. Capital City Consulting. That guy's a star. Jorge, who we got here? Chamizo, Kolodny, Fass, Talentfeld, Kalinsky, Abate, and Webb, PA. Dickstein Shapiro, which I gather is also a firm, unless some set of Floridian parents were cruel enough to name their son Dickstein, which I guess anything is possible. Pepe Fanjul Jr. He's star-studded in terms of wealth, I guess. National Committee man Peter Feeman, not a big star as far as I can tell. Florida Chamber of Commerce, Murray Goodman, all snoozers so far. Senate President, that's a political star, Mike Haridopoulos. Do I have that name correct? Dr. Stephanie Haridopoulos, which, okay. Thanks, Doc. She comes as well. Finance Chairman Mike Hightower, I guess a big name in Florida politics. Lori Kalani, which sounds like maybe a location in Hawaii. Lori Kalani. Wow, all the way from Lori Kalani, Hawaii. What does that even mean? Sid Kitson, GOP County Chair Anita Mitchell, Bernie Nash, Ambassador John Rood, which, by the way, if you're going to be an ambassador, like Rood is a bad name for an ambassador, but it's R-O-O-D. And Carol Stewart. Well, all of those hosts invited you, according to this invitation, to a reception in support of Attorney General Pam Bondi. Wow, got everything backwards today. With special guests, Donald Trump and Mayor Rudy Giuliani. That was Friday, March 14th, 2014. It was at Mar-a-Lago. Suggested minimum contribution, $3,000. There you go. By the way, RSVP to Debbie Alexander at debbie@pambondi.com. So there you go. By the way, this is interesting. That was the suggested minimum contribution. Small type underneath that says maximum contribution allowed by law is $3,000 per election. So the minimum contribution suggested was the maximum allowed. So they went full bore on that one. Okay. There you have it. Anyway, all this money, $125,000 in addition that he gave to the party, the 500 whopping smackaroos that he and Ivanka gave as well, plus the $25,000 illegally contributed from his foundation, created the appearance that Donald Trump was thanking Bondi for halting any further investigation into his failed seminar programs. Trump University. Trump's efforts to boost her politically came during and after a period when Bondi was under pressure to pursue allegations that those seminars were defrauding consumers. Because they were. The use of Mar-a-Lago alone was a donation of some value. Space at the resort is expensive to rent, and Trump has charged his own presidential campaign roughly $140,000 per event for use of the mansion. In contrast, the Republican Party of Florida paid only, anyone want to guess, it's $140,000 when Trump uses it. Anyone? I'll open up Twitter. You can tweet me what your guess is as to what he charged the Republican Party of Florida to have the fundraiser for Pam Bondi. This is going to be a long time if I actually sit here and wait, so I'll pretend that many of you are sending me your estimates. No, it's not $120,000. That would be a $20,000 savings over what Trump charges his campaign, his own campaign, to use his own place, Mar-a-Lago. Is it $100,000? Did he knock 40 grand off the price? That would be a pretty sweet deal. No, not quite. Do keep going. All right, let's jump a little bit. What about $50,000? What about $40,000? If Trump pays $140,000 to rent Mar-a-Lago for his own campaign, wouldn't it be a pretty steep discount if he knocked $100,000 off the price and charged the Republican Party of Florida only $40,000 to use Mar-a-Lago? That would be a tremendous savings, I admit, but it would still be beyond the budget of the Republican Party of Florida. After all, if he charged them $100,000 to use it, or $40,000 to use it, but only gave them $125,000 in contribution, that's a pretty major chunk of the $125,000 he gives them. It's got to be a better deal than that. What if instead of $40,000, you cut that by, say, $35,145 or something like that? Would you get closer? Sure you would. The Republican Party of Florida paid only $4,855.65 for the Bondi fundraiser, cutting a check on March 25th, 2014. It was a small event on the lawn, featuring snacks and refreshments, attended by about 50 people, a Bondi campaign staffer told the Huffington Post. Though I have to note that there are photographs of the two of them at an event at Mar-a-Lago. I guess that's not the fundraiser, so maybe that's a little misleading. But there's a lot of people there. The photo that accompanies, or one of the photos that accompanies the piece, of course, puts a lie to the idea, I never spoke to her. Or they're chatting quite amicably right here, and very obviously. In this photo, this is a photo, though, that is captioned, Donald Trump and Pam Bondi meet again at the Palm Beach Lincoln Day dinner at Mar-a-Lago on March 20th, 2016. That was a much bigger event than the 50 people on the lawn. So there you go. I don't know. Still, I mean, I guess that will get you cut rate. You only use the lawn, right? We closed the bathrooms. They can't even, all the attendees had to pee on the lawn. And we had hors d'oeuvres. I don't know. I mean, I guess we should ask some questions about that. $140,000 for your campaign to use the mansion, $4,800. Okay, so $5,000 for Bondi to use it for their funder. Okay, well, whatever. Small event, 50 people. That would be $3,000 a head, by the way, right? So let's see. We need to get the calculator out just to be sure. Normally I could probably do this in my head, but because I'm speaking, there's already voices in my head. So $3,000 times 50 people, that's $150,000 raised if everyone gave the minimum suggested donation, which is also the maximum allowable donation. So I think I feel pretty safe in using the $3,000 figure. And of course, Donald probably did not pay, but I don't know whether they included him in the 50 people think. So $150,000 was cleared, minus about $5,000 for the expense of renting the place. Not a bad thing. $145,000 gets raised. Of course, $125,000 was raised just by, Donald Trump waving his magic wand and dumping a bag of cash on the Republican Party. But this was for Bondi's re-election campaign specifically. All right. Trump's courtship of Bondi, an interesting term, because many people are asking questions based on the inordinate number of very intimate-looking conversation photos that exist between these two. But the courtship of Bondi, you know who's not in the picture every time she's at Mar-a-Lago? Melania. She might not like political events. That could be it. Trump's courtship of Bondi, including the Mar-a-Lago event, could complicate a line of attack his campaign is currently making against Hillary Clinton. Trump and his surrogates have attacked Clinton's family foundation for accepting donations from governments and individuals with businesses before the State Department during her tenure there. They have suggested, you may have heard some of this stuff, that in turn those donors were given special access to the then Secretary of State and her staff. Clinton and her aides have, can you believe this? They denied the charge and responded by arguing that Trump has used his money to influence politicians, an accusation he hasn't always denied. I've got to give a contribution to them because when I want something, I get it, he said in January. When I call, they kiss my ass. It's true. They kiss my ass. It's true. He said that twice because thinking of different words the second time, a little too much work. So a little background is included here about Trump University and why it was in trouble and why people were complaining about it. And let's see. It says one attendee, Sheila Roberts, I guess is the name of the woman who contacted then Florida Attorney General Bill McCollum in 2009 over her problems with Trump University. And she got her money back. And by the way, she's voting for Trump. So there you go. Good use of the money. Sheila Roberts contacted McCollum's office in 2009 when she did not receive a refund of almost $2,000. Roberts told the Huffington Post that she felt the office handled her complaint appropriately. Did get the money back, so no problem there. Roberts added, she's voting for Trump because he successfully cheated me temporarily out of $2,000. But eventually, I invoked the powers of the Attorney General, Bill McCollum, and got my money back. So we're all good now. I'll be voting for her. But many unhappy customers of the real estate seminars didn't get their refunds. Carol Minto of Connecticut said the Trump Institute, which is based in Florida, refused to honor her refund. She reported the matter to attorneys general both in Florida and Connecticut, but only heard back from the Connecticut folks who helped her get her money back. The Florida folks, not so much. All right, then a little bit of an update on the IRS situation over the $25,000 check from Trump's foundation and the fine that he got for that. Anything else new on that front down here in the Huffington Post piece? Not to my knowledge. But, again, lots of credit here, even in the Huffington Post, which isn't always as forthcoming with their credit, but does link to the Orlando Sentinel's work on this in the past. They laid all the groundwork for that one. And, of course, mention of the Greg Abbott contribution, which avid watchers of this situation are always insistent we see included in those things. And so credit there to the Huffington Post for including that. And I guess that's phase 2 of, the next big outrage over Trump's political contributions. Now, Joan McCarter joins us this morning. Hi, Joan. How you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm okay, too. I've been having some fun looking at pictures of this person, Pam Bondi, who Trump doesn't know and never met before. Yeah, I think I got even those background stories wrong. I don't know if he ever said I never met her at all.
No, he said he never talked to her about the donation or the bribery. Yeah.
That's okay. They wink at one another. I'm not talking to you about the $25,000 I'm sending you, This conversation is not taking place. Right. Absolutely not.
Totally believable.
Yeah.
Totally believable.
But I like I think the buried lead and all of that for close Trump watchers. They didn't bury it too much. Huffington Post knew what they were doing. They put it in the subheader of the piece that just pointing out that when Trump's campaign finally started getting funded by the Republican National Committee instead of his own dollars, and he is when he started billing for the use of Mar-a-Lago by his own campaign, and he was no longer footing the bill, he charged himself $140,000 on average per event at Mar-a-Lago, which was money paid, basically out of the RNC to him. When Mar-a-Lago was used by Pam Bondi for her fundraiser, the rental fee was $4,800.
What a deal.
So she really did get some fun deals out of him. That's she can talk him down, I don't know. He did not make a great deal for himself with her, but I don't know. He certainly made a great deal when it was money that was going into his pocket. So good job. I think. I don't know. He's grifting really well. Speaking of grifting really well, Congress is back. I understand. They're done with their summer grifting.
I can tell that Congress is back because I have 3 veto threats in my email this morning from the Office of Management and Budget.
Yes. All right. What's terrible that they're vetoing? Or
The House has a number of measures up today under suspension that would get Dodd-Frank in various ways.
Suspension bills on the veto threat list. That's not normal.
No.
It is for them.
These things would be on a suspension calendar.
Yeah.
Normally you get things like post offices and federal facilities and stuff like that. But
non-controversial. Usually.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're vetoing, or he threatens to veto what?
Various things, trimming and cutting and gutting Dodd-Frank.
Okay.
Yeah.
3
Which,
of those?
Won't make it over to the Senate, probably. Very little that the House does in the next 20 days, because there are just 20 days, including today now, left to legislate.
Oh.
Yay!
Yeah.
Very little that they do will actually come to anything. There's going to be another Obamacare repeal, probably.
20 days left. They've done it 100 times, but one more never hurt.
What the hell? There's an election.
Wow.
In case you hadn't heard. Coming up in a couple of months.
Yeah.
The big fight, as usual, on the House side's going to be a continuing resolution to keep government funded after September, actually, October 1.
Right.
And the Freedom Caucus says we have to take this into next year. It has to be
the next year.
They're saying a long-term continuing resolution funding bill.
Oh, okay.
That will go into the next presidency.
All righty. Yeah.
Democrats and, moderate Republicans are saying, no, because we need to run for re-election on having, accomplished something. And that would be keeping our promise of passing appropriations bills. So,
all right.
What we want to do is a short-term funding, very short-term funding, come back in the lame duck in November and pass our appropriations bills and fund the government for real.
Mm-hmm.
Senate Democrats agree. This is the way to approach it. Mitch McConnell, we don't know what Mitch McConnell's doing. It's Mitch. He's probably not looking forward to a government shutdown, so he's probably not going to be supporting the Freedom Caucus guys. But he has another agenda in mind, and that is loading Hillary Clinton's first 100 days down with so much old crap that she can't accomplish anything right up at the gate.
Oh.
All
right.
Very complicated stuff they're talking about doing over in Capitol Hill. Mostly how they're going to sabotage Hillary Clinton in her first 100 days.
I feel like
and whether or not they're going to shut down government this October.
No. Okay. It's a bit of a role reversal. I was caught by surprise there. Normally, I don't know why I describe it in terms of being normal, but
normal. There's nothing normal anymore. Normal no longer exists.
But more recently, when there's been a fight over, okay, we now admit that there simply has to be a continuing resolution. Freedom Caucus has typically been the short-term advocates, and other people say, well, let's smooth this out and give ourselves a little bit more breathing room. And it's been the Freedom Caucus guys who say, well, if there's going to be a CR, we'll only accept it if it's like 2 weeks or something, so we can come back and try and defund something else again sooner. So interesting role reversal.
I think, I can't begin to comprehend what the thinking is with these people. They're distrustful of anything happening in lame duck.
Yes.
And I think they also want to pick a shutdown fight with Hillary Clinton. I think. So. I don't know.
Well, that's that would be the upshot, the difference between passing I guess the reason that people who are for a short-term CR now are for it is because the idea is, well, then we would come back and pass the actual real stable year-long budget and not have that budget fight with the new president, whoever it may be, and we can just start the process over again and do it for real. And they can have the same fight, and they will have the same defunding fight if they just start the budget process, with a real budget in place, and almost as soon as they get back in January, they'll be starting it all over again anyway for the next fiscal year.
Right.
But they would like, I guess, 2 bites at that apple.
They always want 2 bites, as many bites as they can take.
Right. Because they're fiscally conservative with
the
apples.
And, the shorter term things, they like the really short continuing resolutions because that's how they can keep fighting.
Yeah.
That's how they can keep extorting.
So, all right. Well, they just, it's not that they've changed positions for it necessarily. It's just that going into next year, having a long-term CR in place at this point leads to another series of short-term fights earlier in the year next year than it would ordinarily. Right. So, okay.
Right.
So that's the strategy of changing positions on short-term versus long-term CRs, I guess, at the end of the year. They're weird.
They're weird. Okay. Speaking of which, speaking of extortion, Senate Democrats again were forced to block a Zika funding bill. Because once again, Mitch McConnell offered up the House bill that doesn't really fund Zika. It cuts Obamacare. It prevents funding from going to Planned Parenthood. It loosens guts, essentially clean water regulations with used pesticides. And it would allow Confederate flags to fly in veteran cemeteries.
They are known mosquito repellents.
Yeah.
They're very effective. If you're being bitten by bugs, wave a Confederate flag around, and that does nothing, but
So, the headlines today read Senate Democrats block Zika funding over Planned Parenthood. The actual story is Republicans poisoned Zika funding.
Yes.
To force Democrats to vote against it so that they could get the kind of headline that they just got in the New York Times.
The New York Times, they're liberal.
New York Times.
Yeah. Why it's not to me it's a fun headline to say Republicans put Confederate flags in the Zika bill.
Yeah.
Why that's less click-worthy, I have no idea.
I have no idea either, but hey, congratulations, New York Times, you fell for it.
Well, good job. Special note to the Confederate friends, you lost. Get over it. Sore losers.
Again, still.
Yeah. 150 years ago, but whatever, let's have that in there. That's because Zika, that's today, it's here, it's now. Confederacy, gone for 150 years, but we should probably settle this right now. I don't know. You had your chance to win the war and you blew it. Sorry. I mean,
Yeah. We
I was
won.
rooting for
Well,
you, but
we
I'm
we
saying
won.
it from here
So,
in Virginia. We won.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's the fresh news for today's Civil War.
Well, it's sort of. Let's turn to little Marco and stay with
He's
Zika.
still, okay, in America and everything, huh? Okay. What's he
Little
doing?
Marco is so intent on keeping his launching pad for running for president in 2020 that he's
intent
telling
is he?
his Republican colleagues to drop the crap out of the Zika bill.
He wants a clean Zika bill.
He wants a clean Zika bill.
What is he, a rhino?
I know.
He thinks that helps his. Okay, well, I'm not a Republican, but I have seen them, and I read the newspaper, and I don't know. Okay, I guess he's going for the traditional get business done, I know how to govern style Republican.
Right. Since he's cared so much about that in the past
Yeah.
6 years of his term.
I like the shift. He took a look at the results of the primary and said, I need to be in the Jeb Bush space.
Right.
That's what I got to do to improve. The guy who lost before I did. Huh.
The guy who hasn't shown up to vote, to attend committee hearings,
Yeah,
to
that's
do
it.
anything
I want to get
for
things
months.
done.
Now decides he's got to go in and be an effective legislator.
Well, that's good. It's a good suit to try on. Give it a try. See if you like it. Maybe
Yeah.
it'll catch on with you.
I also think that he's catching a lot of heat back home for his anti-abortion stance, even when it comes to Zika.
Yeah. Well, Florida and Miami is rightly freaking out about Zika.
Yep.
I guess he's been home long enough to hear that.
Yep.
And
here he is telling women who may be infected with Zika and who may be pregnant that no matter what is horribly wrong with your fetus, you've got to carry it to term.
Yes, please do. And if you need some help afterwards,
Don't look at
for
me.
another country, maybe. Ask a neighbor. See if your church will give you something. But other than that, yeah, no, got no help for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll probably come back. He'll probably want to come back and slash whatever programs there might be to help out as well. That'll be part of being an effective legislator later on.
And a fiscal conservative.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, I guess that's not terribly surprising, but it is surprising that Marco Rubio is still, he's still alive. He's still doing things. He's running for Senate and everything. And
Right.
He means to work there if he wins.
Well,
Well,
for a while.
yeah, okay.
He's refusing still, ongoing, to say he will commit to a full 6-year term.
That's not an understanding that he has with the voters at the outset.
Right.
Oh,
No.
Okay.
No. I'm not doing this for 6 years. I'm doing this because I can't run for president if I am a
Oh.
failed, retired senator.
Nobody. Yeah.
Yeah.
X.
If I'm a quitter, like Sarah Palin.
Huh.
So I got to get back in so I can run for president again. Which is exactly what he's saying.
Well, I was going to say he's honest about it, but he's saying that a true thing about it, I guess.
He's
At
saying
least
a
by
true
accident.
thing. Well, he's not saying it in as bald of terms as I've given it. He's saying
wow.
there's no way anybody can commit in their personal lives to 6 years on a job.
Really?
You just don't know what's going to happen in life.
Golly.
You can't say you'll be there for 6 years.
That's he's very philosophical. 100 people
Yeah.
do that all the time, of course, but and they're very prominent people. We pick two of them from every state.
Yeah.
Say they're going to do that, but not Marco, because as you know, he's deathly ill. Maybe that's what's happening. He's telling us he's on death's door, and because that's what else could he mean?
What else could he mean?
Not that he's running for president, because we saw you try to do that and it was terrible. So you can't mean that. You must just mean you're about to die.
That must be it.
All right. Well,
That must be it.
That's very sad. Does he have kids? I don't even know.
He does have kids.
All right, that's sad for them.
Yes.
There you go. I've just mourned. So when he passes away, don't say I was callous about it. I was sad about it before all of you.
There you
I was
go.
the first one out of the box. When he went in. All right. Never mind. It hasn't happened, so it's permissible to joke about. But if he gets run over by a bus tomorrow,
You're going to feel really, really, really bad.
Yes. For the bus driver. Okay. What else is happening? He's a
You're
young,
a horrible
fit
person.
fellow.
That's why I like you so
Well,
much.
It's what you have to do on radio. You've seen who succeeds in radio, right? So
Right.
you have to be terrible.
Oh, goodness. Let's see. What do we have going? We don't have any hearings for Merrick Garland going on in the Senate. That probably doesn't surprise you.
No. Any new investigations, though, of, say, Hillary Clinton or anyone like that? Her cough?
Not yet. Not yet.
Has the Office of the Attending Physician been subpoenaed to? No?
I wonder if she went to the attending physician for health care.
While she was in the Senate? Probably.
Probably. I think they all do.
This is their fault.
I think the chances of them actually issuing a subpoena there are probably minimal.
Yeah, well,
Since
okay.
that
It won't
would
have
set
much in the way of-
dangerous precedents for all of them.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, I accidentally brought your file, Senator. Whoops.
Oops.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to like that one. Okay.
No, I think that that's not going to happen.
But, yeah, they have. I've seen other threats. They're going to reopen some other old wounds, which I didn't think was strategically all that bright. We remember because we're political junkies, but as far as the rest of the country, the sit-in, the Democrats sit-in in the House over gun issues,
Right.
I think was largely forgotten by your average, more apolitical voter. But it sounds like they're going to bring that up. I saw Kevin McCarthy said he was going to be considering some sort of reprimand of some kind,
Right.
or censure even.
Because they think it's a good idea to punish John Lewis.
Yes. Everyone hates John Lewis.
Everyone.
What? I'm not sure.
It'll make the Trump voters happy.
I guess so. But I think most people had, even opponents of the sit-in had mostly forgotten about it. And some of them will be excited to see it brought up again. But on the whole, I think they may misread what people thought of that.
I
But
think
maybe
they
I
just may. But they're apparently operating on the assumption that only Republican voters are paying attention to them.
Or they're only paying attention to Republican voters. Is possible
That's the
as well.
likelier scenario. Yeah.
Okay, so did you see? I put that aside, but I can't recall exactly what punishment they had in mind. And it might just be a sort of a reprimand thing. But do you know?
I think it's just a reprimand. I haven't seen an update lately beyond what Kevin McCarthy said, but I don't think that they've. What do they do? Take their voting card away?
Well, some of them are black, so maybe they will. That's usually what they try to do.
That would be excellent. That would make really good headlines.
Yeah, right. You have to have a photo ID to vote on the floor, and where is yours? Right? You can provisionally vote. They'll tell John Lewis.
Oh, man.
I have not seen them try that one yet.
No. Censure? I don't know. What do they
That's
normally do to punish?
Yeah, reprimand, I think, when they have a more serious issue, they will censure. And I guess, of course, there's always expulsion, but I don't think anybody was going to try that one. Although, I don't know. I guess it's like a voting roll purge.
Yeah.
In Congress, you could try that. But I think they'll just... I would think that they would just go for one of these other two, formal reprimand of some kind, and I don't even know what they think they're going to get out of that. Even the C-SPAN footage would be so boring.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that anybody who would get excited by the idea of punishing Democrats would be so bored by the actual punishment, which is them saying, "You naughty boys, you shouldn't have done this."
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's another Freedom Caucus thing.
Yeah. They may have a very... they may not be clear on exactly what's being offered here.
I think it's just the Freedom Caucus saying, do something.
Guess so.
You know?
All right. Well, they might. We'll just
They
have to wait
might.
and
And we'll be here to talk about it.
I guess so. All right.
Yeah, I just really was not ready for Congress to be happening this week.
Yeah.
I needed another week.
Well,
And it's not like they're going to accomplish anything in this week. They could have waited. They could have come back with just 3 days and done a continuing resolution. And...
Yeah. Well, all right. So I think they'll make it easy for you by not doing anything. But,
yeah.
But you still have to write that they didn't do anything piece. So it's not like you're off the hook exactly, but there won't be much nuance to it, I would guess. Now you spent your day yesterday live blogging Clinton's speech in Tampa, right? I saw that.
I did, which was supposed to be mostly a national security speech, but I don't know whether it was because Trump was doing his whatever it was with the generals yesterday. Supposed to have been a rally, but he was sitting, which has me concerned for his health.
Yeah, that is worrisome.
He was sitting and he was very subdued. Yeah. So I think we need to start questioning whether he has, partial paralysis.
That, could be. He hasn't been doing his vampire feeding at regular intervals.
Barb's suggestion is maybe it's his gout.
Right. What other old-timey ailments might he be suffering from? So he can't stand. Even Donald Rumsfeld could stand all day, but not Trump. That's a very good pull. I like that one. Okay. Well, his doctor continues to insist that he's in astonishingly excellent health.
Dude. But that's just my opinion, dude.
Right. Now, I do notice that...
I love pictures of this guy. He is so... the dude.
He's very
so
weird.
Lebowski.
That's surprising that Trump... I mean, he spent all day yesterday, or maybe the day before, saying, well, the problem with Hillary Clinton was that she didn't have a presidential look, and we all know what that was about. But, I mean, does his doctor have a medical look? I don't think... I mean, does anybody... Have you seen what this guy thinks a doctor looks like? I don't think I trust him to pick presidents based on looks. And by the way, when he's, evaluating how women look, he's not looking for presidents.
No.
It's very rare.
He's not.
Although, who knows, there may have been future presidents among the pageant contestants. Some of them are very intelligent, I'm sure. I haven't met them, but, I don't meet a lot of pageant contestants. I could be wrong.
You could be wrong. Did you see Ivanka's defense of him on sexism charges?
Yes, I read that. She nailed it.
She did.
She can't. He's not sexist.
No sexist would hire his own daughter to work in his company.
Yeah. She phrased that one well. She said, it's obvious. No sexist would hire me. Oh, well, I mean, right. You, because, okay. There are many reasons not to hire you.
Uh-huh.
But I can't fault them. I mean, it's a family business, and that's who's going to work in it. That's okay. But yeah, as far as proof of, he's not sexist. How do we know this? He has daughters, and he didn't cast them into the sea. So, all right. Yeah.
Nepotism is totally not as bad as sexism.
That's it. I'm better with it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's family tradition, family business. Okay. But
is just the cluelessness of this family.
That was surprising. She's supposed to be the
smart one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not sexist. He didn't kill me at birth. So I get to inherit something. So that was useful. They do have an odd relationship. I mean, other people think they have a very odd relationship, but I'm just saying he has a different relationship, it seems, with her than with his other daughter, for one thing, or his two sons, and that's not by itself all that unusual either. A lot of dads dote on daughters, which that's actually sexist, but I mean, but forget all of that proof that he's actually sexist because of the way he treats his daughter. It's very nice, I'm sure. But it's an odd thing how much he relies on her and how much he puts in her hands, and I guess that to her is I don't know, maybe the best scenario I can come up, the best explanation I can come up with that just doesn't mean that she's absolutely clueless is she feels like he trusts her a great deal, and that if he were really sexist, he would think, I have sons and I have daughters. My sons will inherit the business. My daughter will be a socialite, I guess.
Yeah.
But well, the rest of the world has moved on, and they understand that, sons and daughters equally have to make their way in the world and try and move up in whatever their chosen field of work. And I guess if you just get handed everything, that's not much in the way of proof. That's true. She really is amazing. I just did the best I could for you, Ivanka. I don't know.
That was a very nice defense of Ivanka.
Heartfelt. I need a moment to pick a spot on the wall to hit my head with. Well, okay, yeah. So that wasn't really the best defense of her of him on sexism grounds, and of course the photographic record is no help on that one either. But
no,
okay,
no, I just don't even want to think about that.
Yeah, well, I won't take you there. And I don't know. We'll see whether she comes up with anything different in the rest of the day. What is ahead on the front page for the day? It's only Wednesday, so they won't have gotten back into the full swing of things in Congress since Monday was off.
Right, and there's not going to be a lot happening today, I don't think, in Congress. Well, the suspensions, and actually a real. They're actually considering the rule and doing a real let's get Dodd-Frank bill. Oh. So not everything.
In case it doesn't go.
They're trying to slide through there.
All right.
Let's see.
That makes sense. Today's Wednesday, they'll do the suspensions. Thursday, of course, is almost weekend. So
right.
They don't want to get into too much, and they'll be out of there by Friday. It's tough.
We're gonna, by the end of next week, we're probably gonna start seeing Mitch McConnell threaten Fridays. Maybe even Saturdays.
Well,
probably.
That's,
government funding.
Right. Well, it is late or will be late in September by the end of next week.
Yeah.
And,
sorry. It's September 7th. 20 days left.
Yeah. And that'll be costly. I mean, people want their weekends, not just because they're weekends, which is fun and everything, but these guys are, of course, all supposed to be on the campaign trail.
Right.
So they'll be a little upset, which is probably also part of the reason why Freedom Caucus guys want a long-term CR so they can go home without having to campaign with a government shutdown looming. They can just punish the Democrats.
Well, except they're the ones who want to pick the government shutdown fight.
Well, that is weird. I mean, do they want that for this campaign? I think if they want a long-term. Maybe they don't know what a long-term CR is. It's possible.
It's possible. It's possible.
You see them up there voting. Oh, wait, I want a short term. Oh, what did I do?
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, no, their big thing is as near as I can tell, they're really paranoid about something horrible happening in the lame duck. I think they see the potential. I'm trying to rationalize this, and I'm not sure that that's a good idea because I don't know that you can actually make rational any of their actions.
Might make it worse to try to think about it in rational terms, but that's what we do.
But I think that they see Democrats are going to come back with some power because they're going to have the Senate majority again the next year. I think they just don't want a situation in which Democrats might have an upper hand just because of election results.
Yeah. So maybe abolishing the Senate in the lame duck would be something worth thinking about.
I'm sure if they could figure out a way to do it, they would try.
Well, you know what? They might not need to figure out a way that they can really do it. They could just come back and say, well, we're doing it.
Yeah.
I wrote it down on this piece of paper, so there you go. That's the law.
And by the way, Speaker Ryan, we're not voting for you.
At the next... Yeah, all right, well...
we covered that one, didn't we?
Right,
yeah.
But they were not going to do it. I was trying to think, is there any way they could come up with a way to threaten his speakership right now, before September ends? I guess they could try it. I mean, don't put it past them to try and come out with a motion to declare the chair vacant somehow, if they don't get their way. But that would have to be a pretty awfully fast-moving thing, and I mean, it would be doomed, obviously.
Yes.
But that does not matter to them.
It does not matter to them. I don't know what matters to them. I haven't been able to figure it out. Taxes.
Yes, generally.
I'm not sure what else.
Bribery?
Power.
Power. I love that.
Very much power.
Don't have any.
But I don't know that they've really determined what they're going to do with it if they get it.
They're going to kick John Boehner out.
For example, yeah, they took out Boehner, but look at what happened. Look at all of the things in the early years of the Obama administration. Well, not the earliest years, but once the Senate was lost. Look at all of the things he would have given them had they been smart enough to see the opportunity and grab it. Social Security cuts.
There was a time.
All sorts of deficit reduction that was really pretty heinous. Had they been not so distrustful, had they not just had the knee-jerk reaction of, we can't let this president win anything, they'd have achieved a lot of really bad stuff.
Yeah.
So, as usual, you can thank the Freedom Caucus for not making things worse.
I guess so.
In their fight to make things worse.
I am amazed about this one. I don't think that there is... I'm looking at this piece in The Hill here. Juan Williams writing, GOP leaders must pick a poison on shutdown was the title here. I didn't even realize this was in the offing here. Did you realize that the Freedom Caucus members, it says here, they're already upset with Ryan, won after the defeat of Tim Hulskamp, which you mentioned last week. But then, also fueling inside anger among the Freedom Caucus is the possibility that Ryan will not take up a resolution to impeach IRS Commissioner John Koskinen before the election.
That was one of their big fights.
Well, me too. I can't even remember why do they want him impeached?
It goes back to that whole Tea Party non-scandal.
Boy, they really love bringing these things back up. They're going to punish John Lewis. They're going to impeach. You know what? I think we should encourage them to do that and say, yeah, the Freedom Caucus is impeaching the IRS commissioner because he fined Donald Trump for the illegal contribution to Pam Bondi. You want to do it?
What's funny is this IRS commissioner wasn't in the position at the time of the whole Tea Party. They're auditing us unfairly. Non-scandal.
But he was, I guess, for the fine. So might as well impeach him for that. I think we should make it be about that and talk more about Pam Bondi. This is great. They're very strategic-minded. They would love to remind everybody of the gun issue, to punish John Lewis ahead of what might be historic levels of black voter turnout, and or at least historic lows in terms of black Americans voting for the Republican candidate, which is always low, but now we're really talking about one and possibly only one voter.
Yeah.
Ben Carson, and that's it, I guess. So let's throw that in there. And then also a story that, sure, Pam Bondi got an illegal contribution. The IRS fined her, and now they're impeaching the IRS commissioner. That's not what we meant. Oh, no, was it? And then you have a coherent story to tell us? What was that? It was, remember the Tea Party, which we all hate now because that's establishment and we're all alt-right or something? I don't remember. Where were we?
Yeah, good question.
All right. So, yeah, these guys we've had a better part of a year off from this as we all have watched the Trump train wreck, and their response to this is, at the last minute, we would like to remind you that we were all this crazy, this stupid, and this disjointed even before Donald Trump.
Right. Trump
totally
doesn't
changed
own
everything.
This. We do.
Right. Where did Trump come from? Golly, I can't figure it out. Okay, so it's a strategy. I encourage it.
They exist entirely in their own little world.
I guess so.
It just astounds me.
They're
all off doing their own thing in their little bubble, seemingly completely unaware that the rest of the world is carrying on, that there's a general election, that there's a presidential election.
Yeah. Well, I thank them for reminding us.
It's fascinating to watch. Horrifying, but fascinating.
Yes. Well, you're captive, and like Clockwork Orange, we're going to hold your eyes open and make you watch it.
Speaking of which, Daily Kos will be live blogging the Commander-in-Chief Forum tonight.
Oh.
Which you may or may not have heard about.
I have not. Tell me.
Trump, Clinton, not on at the same time, but, and I can't believe that this is the moderator, Matt Lauer.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so not a debate per se, but a forum about what Commander-in-Chief type issues. Very interesting.
Yes. And you can follow along on the front page of Daily Kos.
Okay. Is that going to mean you have to stay there and do that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck with that. That should be very interesting. And probably no small amount of time spent on Matt Lauer on that one, too. I imagine he will cover himself in glory.
He always does, doesn't he?
Well, we'll see. Thanks, Joan.
You're welcome.
Our music playing that says we all got to get out of here and make way for the after show. I appreciate your coming by. And,
no problem. Talk to you next week.
Tonight. Thanks again. Take care. And let me update everybody on what's coming up next as we hustle ourselves out the door. It is Wednesday's Child is Full of Woe Wednesday on the after show, and I'm going to get right to the substance of the things because that's what the electorate is craving. Juror selection, that is, begins for Ammon Bundy, remember that guy? And 6 others indicted in the Oregon wildlife takeover. A U.S. district judge temporarily halts construction of that Dakota Access Pipeline. Definitely ignored on this show, so stay tuned for that and more on that subject.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Very specifically on that Dakota Access Pipeline, halting construction thanks to the judge there, but not any halt on the sacred burial sites bulldozed by the company over the holiday. And that and much more that I can't fit in here because of my extraordinarily slow read today. Do stay tuned for all the great stuff coming up next.